My name is Matt Whitnall, and I'm the graduate assistant with the Transnational NGO Initiative. I am undertaking a brief career interview with Nyaradzayi Gumbonzvanda, Secretary General of the World Young Women's Christian Association, or the YWCA. Ms. Gumbonzvanda is participating in our fellowship program, which invites a transnational NGO leader once a year to undertake research with us to explore an organizational challenge they face in their organization. So, Ms. Gumbonzvanda, thank you for being with us today, and we appreciate you taking the time to sit with us. So I'd like to start out by hearing your brief explanation of what the YWCA does.
The YWCA grows the leadership of women and girls globally. We are in 125 countries, and we have a reach of 25 million women and girls. Currently, our programs are focusing on intergenerational leadership. We're also focusing on women's human rights, and a strong focus on movement building is our core activities at this moment. Okay,
great. So now if you could explain a little bit about what the research you hope to kind of explore while you're here with us at the Transnational NGO Initiative at the Maxwell School.
When I received this fellowship, actually, I just said, this is what I needed, because I need a space to reflect around intergenerational leadership. Yeah. I'm very passionate about intergenerational leadership, and I see intergenerational leadership as contributing to this significant discourse on shared leadership. And we know the issue of shared leadership is very important to the quality of governance of our organization. It's a critical dimension of democratic space within our institutions, whether it's transnational NGOs or our governments. It is part of the transformative agenda that we're exploring. I'm also keenly interested on the issue of intergenerational leadership from the perspective of my organization, which is about young women, and yet we are a very old organization which has existed for the last 155 years. And so we have old volunteers, women who have been there for a long time, and we're trying to continue to grow how we can share this space between older volunteers and young women, young leaders coming in, but in a way that affirms both, and not in a way that pushes in the young women and pushes out the older women, but a way in which we can have an expanded space of collaborative leadership across generations, and to understand what are some of the barriers that young women face as they seek to access leadership, and what are some of the challenges that older women face when young women come into this space, or why they don't look for alternative ways of providing leadership. So this I see is contributing to the organization, to the World YWCA's work on intergenerational leadership, but also contributing to my own effectiveness as a leader, to be able to listen carefully to what I need to do to advance the mission of the organization on intergenerational leadership, and what do I need to do with my staff team, what do I need to do with the board, what do I need to do with the members and with the stakeholders, and also to contribute to the bigger debate that is happening globally around development. As we know that the Commission on Population is focusing on youth, as we know there is the Rio +20 conference on sustainable development, and there's a very strong content on young people. And the world is reviewing the Millennium Development Goals, and part of it's having a real generational focus, so that it's not just about today, but it's also about tomorrow. And so for me, this research and this opportunity is both personal, organizational, and at the broader development level.
Well, hopefully your 2 weeks here will allow you to develop that a little bit more.
I can only do some bits, but I know this would require a little bit of more continual time, right. But really the 2 weeks is just great. I have this 2 weeks.
That's great. We're glad to have you here. So just to give the students a concrete idea of what it's like to lead a transnational NGO, could you perhaps explain a typical day in the life as Secretary General of World YWCA?
Oh my goodness, what do I do when I wake up? I say goodbye to Charles and my children, and and have breakfast. So it's a normal life. It's important to have quality time with family before you leave the house. So that it's not just about the organization, but it's also about the family, because whatever we do, we always go back home. We know others go back home and they're alone. So it's just being practical, that it's important to take care of ourselves, our private lives, but it's important as a leader on a typical day to have a moment you connect with the team in the office, and to be able to have a shared idea of what the day looks like with the team. Because we are co-leaders, I may have some responsibilities which my other staff do not have. They have other responsibilities which I do not have, but we are a team. So it's very important to have a good sense of what is each team member doing, even if it's just at a casual level. So that is the first, which I feel is very important. The relationship, the communication with the staff and with the colleagues. The second is to be very clear on what are the organizational needs at the moment, what are the priorities that just must be done is a critical aspect of ensuring that the organization is remaining on the focus, whether these are defined by what the members are asking of us, or this is defined by what the board is asking of us, or this is defined by what we need to do to resource the organization. But it's important to prioritize. It's important to give a clear priority and say this is a must do, this is a may do, this is a probably will do. But to have
find the time to actually accomplish
and to have time to accomplish that. It's also important to find time, quality time, not just to run and respond to every agent call, every agent email, but to have quality time to think through. We know that as leaders, we have multiple requests to us all the time. And it's very important that you understand that you don't have to answer everything now and here, and even with the pressure of technology, but to be able to find ways in which you create quality time for a quality response. Because every communication that comes to a chief executive is as important. It could be a greeting, but that greeting might be carrying a lot of other messages around it. Also, we know that in organizations there is usually hierarchy of should you answer first to the message that comes from the president of the organization, or that comes from that young woman who is an intern, who was an intern with you last year. I think it's important to give equal measure of attention. Because as a leader, for myself, I see that it is important to be able to listen and to respond to the different constituencies of the organization, because everybody makes the organization. So even if there is an agency on one, but it's important to create time to listen to the other parts of the house. The other bit which is important is that as a leader, you always need to be ready for emergencies. Emergency preparedness is ready to pick the bag and run, or ready to pick the phone and make the critical phone call, or ready to be able to say, I cannot do this, I need to ask somebody else to take this action. So a leader, including in my typical day, it's important to have a clear understanding of if something happens, who do I call?
So not only have the plan, but have the capacity to manage it
when it happens. And also to say, is this something which, if something happens to me, does the organization have the capacity to continue running without me? So a leader needs to, including myself, I'm always very conscious that I need to have the possibilities that the organization can still respond if something happens. But it's me who also needs to take the lead in creating a preparedness.
That's something interesting, I think, to reflect on maybe on a monthly basis. Can the organization operate without my presence? And if it can, then I think the leader is doing a good job.
But it takes courage to grow. It takes building an organization which has self-confidence, because we know that there are some organizations which are so dependent on the leader, that even the thought of the leader not being there can create a sense of uncertainty and fear and discomfort. So it takes an organization to have a good culture of self-confidence, of support, and not of vulnerability. And also it takes a good team. It takes a good team.
Of course. Okay, so, you looking at your past experiences, it's clear that you have worked in a wide array of different positions, primarily focused on women and children's human rights issues. So I'm wondering if you could take us through your own career path up until taking the position at World YWCA, and then kind of how you chose to take that position.
Oh my goodness, that's a... You want me to start from... when I was born in my village in Murewa in Zimbabwe, I always was reading. I'm the last born in a big family of 11. And I always wanted to know, where does the bus come from? I would see the bus come and go in the morning, the bus would come and go. And I was just from my school to the river, from the river to the garden, to the well to fetch water. I wanted to know where the bus comes from. So that, I think, is where it started, because I would just read and read and read. I wanted to know, I knew there is another world in addition to my world in the village. And so the opportunity that I had, my father passed away when I was in 3rd grade, and my mother lifted all of us up for 27 years when she was a widow. And I was the first one to go to university in my family, in the big family of 11. And when I found that my family, my siblings, have all sacrificed their own education and possibility for me to be who I am today, I think it started there. A clear sense that we are who we are because somebody else contributed to who we are. Irrespective of our station in life, we are who we are because there's always somebody who gave to themselves for us to be who we are. So when I went to university, first I went to town when I was a big girl, and I always dream that not many girls would go through the same experience that I went through. So when I went to university and graduated in law, I was already quite involved at the university in social justice issues. I was involved with the Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace. I was involved with the founding of the Zimbabwe Women Lawyers Association. I tried to practice law, but my heart was calling me out to be more in the social justice, human rights kind of work. So I immediately, I spent quite some time being involved in NGO activism and doing some research, legal literacy work, family counseling on family law issues. I enjoyed that is the founding coordinator for the Zimbabwe Women Lawyers Association. That was a very important part of my formation, both as a professional, but also as a leader, as we had just started this organization. Then I was still searching where the bus comes from. Now I knew where the bus comes from my village, and I'd now been to town, but I still felt it's more I want to know, and I need to. So I looked at opportunities of joining the United Nations, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to join UNICEF, which is the United Nations Children's Fund, a great organization. And I started as a national child rights advisor in my country, Zimbabwe, and then went to Liberia, where I was heading the section on human rights protection. And it was during the war, and it was a difficult time. to be on the front line and working with child combatants, working with girls who have been sexually abused, and yet you could smell the war in our face all the time. And it made it reinforced for me a clear sense that we need to work for peace, we need to work for justice, that it's unacceptable for young people, for families, for communities to lose their lives due to war and conflict. Is unnecessary and it's unacceptable. So it just grounded my strong passion to work on issues of human rights and to work on issues of social justice and for peace. And then I had an opportunity to continue with the United Nations. And when I was in my early 30s, I was appointed the regional director for the UN Fund for Women, which is now UN Women in East Africa. And I spent 7 years in this position. It was also a very deep experience that I had working with UNIFEM in East Africa, because I was covering the Sudan and was quite involved in the peace processes in the Sudan, both between the SPLM and the government of Sudan. I was quite involved in the Darfur process, the Abuja negotiations. It was painful to be in this experience. I was also responsible for Somalia. Again, another painful country, painful experience. And Uganda, I know that these few weeks we've seen a lot of talk around CONI 2012. And I've been to northern Uganda, where the conflict has been for the last 22 years. And we're asking the question that we really need this to go away. People in northern Uganda deserve peace. And I was also covering the Great Lakes region. So it was such a great experience to be involved in countries which are in crisis, but at the same time promoting women's rights, promoting participation, protection from sexual violence and abuse, but also economic empowerment for women. And 2006, something happened in 2006. And I was enjoying my job. I was at the great peak of my career within the United Nations. It was a great, and it still remains one of the greatest experience that I have had in my profession. But my mother passed away. And I just, I went to bury my mother, and I looked at this woman lying here, and I just said, I need to do something for her. Here's a woman who has given her life to changing a generation. And I just felt I needed to be in an organization that can enable me to sit with women under the tree and do the dance in the village. Just like we've done with my mother.
To really get to the communities. And
to just go to the communities. But at the same time, I want to lift my mother's voice, just like she has lifted me, to continue with the global engagement, to continue to seek a world of possibilities, because it's not enough for life to change in my village. It's important for life to change in the global village for women and girls. So this is how I came to the YWCA. It was an appropriate space to be, where I could be a global leader and be able to continue to engage with the United Nations, continue to engage with the African Union or the European Union or CARICOM, and at the same time be able to sit either in the streets in LA with the YWCA doing housing and shelter for the poor, or be able to be in Fiji, in Suva, doing child care in a country which is struggling, or do breakfast morning programs in Barbados with children who have parents who are unable to provide them for breakfast before they go to school, or still come back to my village in Murewa and do some exciting work with people living with HIV. So I found the YWCA to be a space where I can do transnational engagement in communities, and at the same time be able to still meet with Mr. Ban Ki-moon and tell him that we need the UN to continue to invest in maternal health and women's health, to still be able to meet with President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia and be able to say, Madam President, we need more women in leadership in addition to yourself. So it's a space that was connecting with both my social justice, human rights commitment, but also with who I am. And I've now found where the bus comes from. I've discovered where the bus comes from. It comes from each one of us. In our hearts is where the bus comes from, because we only but search who we are and what we can give to this world. And for each one of us, if we only listen to our hearts and to our passion and our dreams, we all would know that the bus does not come from anywhere, but I've discovered that it comes from my heart.
So that's powerful. That's amazing. I mean, in your position at the YWCA is clearly a culmination of all of the events and important experiences that you've had in your life, and you've really been able to pinpoint exactly what you want to do and how you best fit in that, and how you can play your role within the world, within society as a whole. I think that's amazing. So to kind of wrap things up, if you wouldn't mind providing us with some career advice. We've kind of been touching on your career, and I guess I'd like to kind of turn towards more specific skills that you think it's important that students develop if they'd like to kind of pursue a career in transnational NGOs, specifically within leadership positions.
I think the first which I need to share is that our personal life stories shape who we are. And we need to always be confident, comfortable about who we are. I lost my siblings. I said we were born 11. 3 of my siblings died of AIDS-related illnesses. That has shaped who I am in terms of my advocacy in health, in my deep commitment to look at the right to health, the equal opportunity. 2 of my siblings have mental health problems. My big brother, my first elder brother, he has had a mental illness for the last 30 years, and my elder sister. It has also shaped part of who I am, both professionally, but also life. So my first career advice is we need to be confident. We need to reach into ourselves, to name the issues, the great things that happen in our lives, but also the tough things that happen in our lives, and take that positively as shaping who we want to be. Because at times we are always running away from who we are. So that's my first career advice, is embrace yourself, embrace your experience, whether that is a painful experience or an exciting experience, but embrace it and use that to define what you want and to define who you are. So that's first. Second is that you need to continue to grow the knowledge in the area and sphere of life that you want to advance. For me, it was clear that I need to work on issues of human rights, peace, and justice. And so my choice of work, my choice of profession, what I read, the communities of practice that I'm in, I'm so much involved in human rights related circles, and had to study my master's in conflict resolution in Sweden, because I needed to continue to grow my knowledge in the area for which I need to have my career. So having a very conscious focus of what you want to do, and then grow your knowledge. That knowledge does not just have to come from formal spaces, it also comes from informal spaces and other networks. Thirdly is don't be alone. connect and network. It's very important, because if you connect and network and you share, look for mentors, look for coaches. I'm here because there are so many people, from my mother, whom I've talked about, to my sisters, to people like Scholastica Kimario, who was the UNICEF representative, to Leti Chiwara, who is at UN Women, to my own daughter, who is also my mentor in many ways. She's 18 years. So connect. Talk to somebody else about your plans, your interests, your career. Bounce ideas. Get feedback. Be comfortable with negative feedback, because it can only be for the good. So getting feedback at times is very hard, but accept that feedback and then make your judgment. Make your judgment. Take risks. There is no, decide what you want to do and just do it.
Yeah.
You know, don't seek permission. From who? You know, so if you decide that you want to be a pilot, take the steps and do it. If you decide that you want to run for public office one day, take the steps and just do it. Grow the confidence in the self to be who you want to be. I'm very clear. I was very clear when I was looking at where the bus comes from. I was very clear that I want to look for the bus in my country. And so I did all what I can to know what are the issues, what are the possibilities, what is my experience. I was very clear that I needed to understand the world. I needed to understand the multilateral system. I looked for opportunities to be in the United Nations. I was very clear at some moment that whilst I was having great time in the UN, I needed something else to connect with the inner me, and not just the professional me. The mind and the heart. I needed something that connects with both, and I looked for that. So my advice is, be self-aware, know who you are, know what you need, and then look for it. Don't let it come to you, but go for it. And lastly, is we learn. We are never perfect. We don't know everything. Let's not expect to know everything and to be great at everything, because it's not doable, it's not possible, it's not realistic. We cannot be perfect human beings. There is no such thing. So know where your limitations are and surround yourselves with others who can complement your skills. I know that I need somebody to help me wake up in the morning. I'm a late morning person. So if a meeting is at 8 o'clock, I struggle. So I always need to surround myself with somebody who says, Nyaradzayi, get up, move on. My daughter saying, Mom, not today, you can't be late. Because I know my rhythm. I know who I am. So it's very important to know who you are, but surround yourself, therefore, with colleagues, networks, friends who can compensate, who can enable you, who can support you to be who you want to be. I think the last, and which so much is so special and so precious for me, is the mystery of life. That there is no other you, Matt, in this world. None. Even if people are identical twins, but they are two different human beings. And each one of us is the greatest potential and possibilities. And we just need to say yes.
Embrace it.
And embrace it.
That's right.
And just celebrate being part of this mystery.
Don't run away from
life,
it.
and not
That's
run
so
away
important.
from it, and just embrace it, celebrate it, enjoy it, and give the best you can to just be who you are. I think for me that is the greatest, is if each one of us could just be who we want to be, and accept who we are, and then embrace love and support. So yeah.
I think that positive note is a wonderful place to end the career interview. So, Miss Nyaradzayi Gumbonzvanda. I really appreciate you taking
so
the
much,
time to sit down with us.
And also thank you to you. I want to really say thank you to you and all colleagues at the Institute and all the students who had put significant work to help me with my literature review, to help me settle and to enjoy my time at Maxwell.
Well, it's a pleasure. I think we can learn a lot from you as well, so it's great.
Thank you so much.